Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I'm your teacher Simin Aber and today I'm here with a new lecture. I hope everything is going well at your home. Let's start today's lecture. This is my lecture number 20 for grade 01 and today we have a history class because we are already done with geography session in yesterday's live Zoom session. We have already started the last chapter, which is chapter number 16, and this chapter is about Pakistan's foreign affairs since 1947 till 1999. Today our topic is Pakistan and the Soviet Union. It's like Pakistan's relation with USSR since 1947 till 1999. This Soviet Union is also known as USSR, and USSR stands for Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So the first spell is from 1947 to 1960, and this is about the relationship between Pakistan and USSR. So although we can say after partition, although we had a border with USSR, but still Pakistan chose to ally with the West rather than with the communist powers. The USA in the Pakistan tried to establish good relations with the USA in the late 1940s, but the USA was more interested in an alliance with India. This encouraged the Soviet Union to invite Liaquat Ali Khan to visit Moscow. The invitation alarmed the USA, which immediately offered Liaquat Ali Khan to visit to Washington. So this is actually politics. Liaquat chose to go to the USA. This clearly snubbed the Soviet Union, and relations between Moscow and Pakistan suffered for some time. By 1950, the Soviet Union was clearly supporting India over Kashmir and not maintaining a neutral stance as it had been doing immediately after partition. When Pakistan joined SEATO and CENTO in the mid 1950s, the Soviet Union took this as a firm declaration in favor of the USA. Obviously, it was in favor of USA because both the organization, the SEATO and the CENTO, were the organizations of the anti-Soviet. So I'll explain CETO and CENTO in the coming slides as we have already done with CETO and CENTO in the class, but still I'll explain in the next slides. The Soviet Union told the Pakistan government that it was allowing itself to be used as a base for American imperialism, for American rule. In 1955, the Soviet Union officially backed India in Kashmir and Soviet leaders visited India. They declared wholehearted support for the Indian claim to Kashmir and began to give India economic and technical assistance. The USA was already providing military and economic aid to Pakistan, but they were not backing us or supporting us in any war with India. In the same year, the Soviet Union also began to press Pakistan over the Afghan claims in Pakhtunistan. There were some Afghanis who were asking like Pakistan for the area of KPK, which was like NWFP, and they claimed it as a Pakhtunistan, as a part of Afghanistan. However, the Soviet Union also made it clear that it wanted to have good relations with Pakistan. It offered the Pakistan government some aid. For example, in 1956, it offered to build a steel mill, and if it broke off the alliance with the USA, so that was like we can say a kind of statement given by the USSR, like we can only have this aid for the steel mill if we broke off with the alliance with the USA. But the Pakistan refused to do. In May 1960, relations reached to a low point when a spy plane from the US base in Peshawar was shot down over the Soviet Union. And the Pakistan government denied any knowledge of American spying, but the Soviet government did not accept this because when they shot down this plane, the pilot of that plane, the spy plane, he actually told the USSR about the usage of the Peshawar base camp. So that's how they blamed Pakistan, that Pakistan is involved in the spy plane conspiracy. So this spy plane conspiracy is also known as U2 incident, or even the U2 crisis. It was like in the 1960, the U2 incident occurred on 1st May 1960 when an American U2 spy plane was shot down by the Soviet Air Defense Forces while performing this photographic aerial situation deep inside the Soviet territory. It was a confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union that began with the shooting down of this US U 2 plane over the Soviet Union, and that caused the collapse of a summit conference in Paris between the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom and the France. This U 2 spy incident increased the tension between the two nations and helped escalate the Cold War. The mission was codenamed Operation like Grand Slam due to flights were a violation of Soviet territory and risked a violent Soviet response, but at the president continued to authorize planes to fly. So, since the Soviets refused to allow US planes to fly over, the CIA decided to use high altitude U 2 spy plane. In May 1960, the Soviets shot down this plane and captured the pilot. They eventually released him, but this made for tense relation between the two countries. So, Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, which is SEATO. Let me explain what is SEATO. The Southeast Asia Treaty Organization was an international organization for collective defense in Southeast Asia created by the Southeast Asia Collective Defense Treaty. It was signed in September 1954. The purpose of the organization was to prevent communism from gaining ground in the region. Although called the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, only two Southeast Asian countries became the members. So, the Geneva Agreements of 1954, signed after the fall of French Indochina, prevented Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos from joining any international military alliance, though these countries were ultimately included in the area protected under SEATO and granted observers status. Similarly, the CENTO, it was previously known as the Baghdad Pact, and the CENTO mean is like the Central Treaty Organization. So that is CENTO, and it was originally known as the Baghdad Pact or the Middle East Treaty Organization. It was a military alliance of the Cold War. It was formed in 1955 by Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, Turkey, and the United Kingdom, which was later dissolved in 1979. So only UK was non-Muslim, the rest of the countries were Muslim countries. And it was similar to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization. The main purpose of Baghdad Pact was to prevent communist and foster peace in the Middle East. It was renamed the Central Treaty Organization, or CENTO, in 1959 after Iraq pulled out of the pact. In 1965 and in 1971, Pakistan tried fruitlessly to get support in its wars with India from CENTO. But this was rejected because it was viewed that CENTO was aimed at containing the USSR instead of India. The Iranian Revolution brought the end of the organization in 1979. Along with Iran, Pakistan also left CENTO. In the next phase, the relationship of USA and Pakistan worsened in 1960s and 70s. So there was an improvement in relations between Pakistan and the USSR. In 1961, the Soviets or USSR, as a gesture of goodwill, agreed to begin exploring for oil in Pakistan. When India accepted help from the USA in its war with China in 1962, the effect was to drive Pakistan and the USSR closer together. When China began to give Pakistan aid in 1963, the Soviet government decided to take even more final steps or decisive steps to ally with Pakistan. In 1963, it loaned Pakistan with 11 million pounds and in 1963 it shifted from its previous open support for India over Kashmir to a neutral stance. In April 1965, Ayub Khan paid an official visit to the Soviet Union and further agreements on trade and oil explorations were reached. In January 1966, the Soviet Union hosted a peace conference between Pakistan and India at Tashkent. The Pakistan representatives were impressed with the organization of the conference, and the Soviet success in holding the conference raised its prestige in Asia. In 1968, when the Americans decided to close their air base at Peshawar, the Soviet Union began to supply arms to Pakistan. Pakistan was now getting military aid from USA and as well as from China and the Soviet Union. As Pakistan was getting support and aid, military aid from USA, USSR, and from China, at this point, relations with the USSR worsened. The Soviet government was not happy with the fact that Pakistan was accepting aid and arms from both China and the USA and as well as from the Soviet Union. When Pakistan helped to arrange a China US agreement in 1971, the Soviet Union was annoyed as it implied a special relationship between the USA, China, and Pakistan. Consequently, the Soviet Union signed a treaty of peace, friendship, and cooperation with India. And it was like guaranteeing Soviet help if India went to war with Pakistan. This was the lowest point of relations with the Soviet Union, and it harmonized with this civil war and that break away our eastern wing of Pakistan from us. Because USSR supported India in this war, but our allied country, Western ally USA, totally refused us in any of the support in the war. In 1972, Bhutto visited the Soviet Union and began to build friendly relations again. It was at this meeting that the Soviet Union agreed to build a steel mill in Pakistan. However, the improved relations were short lived. The Soviet occupation of Afghanistan in 1979 caused an open rift gap between Pakistan accepted American aid to support the Mujahideen rebels. So actually, Pakistan was gaining aid from the USA to support the Mujahideen, which were against the USSR, and they were the rebels. Although Zia visited Moscow in 1984 for the funeral of the Yuri Andropov, he got a cold reception. Yuri Andropov was a former general secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Later that year, the Soviet Union, which also disapproved of Pakistan's nuclear program, began bombing raids on Pakistan. The hostile or aggressive relations continued till 1988 when the Soviets finally withdrew from Afghanistan. The next topic is on page number 182, that is Pakistan's China relations since 1947 till 1999. When Pakistan gained independence in 1947, China was locked in civil war between the nationalist government and the communist rebels. The war ended in 1949 October with a victory for the communists led by Mao Zedong. At this time, Pakistan was trying to establish itself as an independent country and took little interest in what was happening in China. In contrast, India enthusiastically recognized the new government in Beijing and supported its request to take up the Chinese seat in the United Nations Security Council. Although the nationalist government had been defeated, it had re-established itself in Taiwan and claimed to be the rightful government in China. It therefore also claimed the United Nations seat as the official Chinese government. Despite Pakistan officially recognizing the communist regime in January 1950, it seemed that India's positive attitude combined with Pakistan's acceptance of aid from non communist Western powers meant that China and Pakistan were um, destined not to be close allies. In the 1960s, however, relations improved largely as a result of a dispute between India and as a result of a dispute between India and China. In 1962, China went to war with India over a border dispute. As China had a war with India over border dispute in 1962, the Chinese quickly advanced to where they considered the border should be and claimed the new taken land or new captured land. India was not able to prevent this. The event soured relations between India and China. The USA was keen to support India in any stand it made against communist China, which pushed China and Pakistan into a closer understanding. In March 1962, they began talks to settle their own border dispute. These were these were successfully completed by March 1963. In the settlement, the Chinese made more concessions than the Pakistanis as they were keen to win Pakistan's friendship to counter declining relations with India and the Soviet Union. The talks were followed by other agreements, which were like early in 1963, Pakistan and China announced a series of trade agreements. China granted Pakistan a $60 million interest free loan and soon became the world's largest purchaser of Pakistani cotton. Pakistan also claimed that China had agreed to come to Pakistan's aid in any war with India. In August 1963, Pakistan International Airline began regular flights to China, which helped to increase movement and trade between the two countries. PIA was the first international carrier ever to operate in certain Chinese cities. In 1964, China made a statement supporting Pakistan's policy in Kashmir. In return, Pakistan supported China's entry into the United Nations. At this time, the USA was supporting Taiwan as the legitimate ruler of China because it was nationalist and therefore opposed communism. During the 1965 war with India, China supplied military aid to Pakistan and applied diplomatic pressure on India to prevent it attacking Pakistani positions. Chinese support almost certainly helped Pakistan obtain better terms in the ceasefire. In 1971, it was unable to offer as much support as the Soviet Union had promised India that it would take steps to deal with any Chinese support for Pakistan. Consequently, the Chinese could not take steps as this would risk war with the Soviet Union. That was the politics again of the Chinese side. Immediately after the war, however, China was able to demonstrate its support once more. In February 1972, Bhutto visited China and it was agreed that many of the loans previously made by China to Pakistan should become grants. Now, these were not the loans. Pakistan was not bound to repay all the loans. China also agreed to supply military aircrafts and tanks. The friendly relations between the two countries was highlighted in 1978 when the Karakoram Highway was opened. This road had been under construction since 1966 and was the first major road built between the two countries. It was largely financed by Chinese money and built by Chinese engineers. The terrain or land in which the road was built was so dangerous that it is believed that for every 1 kilometer of road built, one construction worker lost his life. The highway follows the old Silk Road through which Chinese goods had originally come to the rest of Asia. Cordial relations or friendly relations were emphasized in 1986 when President Zia chose China as one of the first countries to visit after taking power in 1986. China and Pakistan signed a nuclear cooperation treaty, an indication that the two countries were on excellent terms. So I think the two topics are enough for today's lecture. Pakistan's relation with USSR since 1947 till 1999 and Pakistan's relation with China in the same time frame. Now here I'm going to give you an assignment. You have to do two questions in your neat notebook. The questions are, why were relations between Pakistan and the Soviet Union poor in the 1950s? So it's a why question. You have to give reasons, but specifically in the 1950s, and then explain why relations between Pakistan and China improved in the period 47 to 71. So you have to consider this time frame like 47 to 71 and give reasons why relations improved in this time with China. Thank you so much, dear students, for watching this video. I hope it will be beneficial for you, and uh, must be clear everything to you. If still you have any confusion, any query, you can drop down your queries in the comment box. I must entertain all of your questions, and we'll meet up again in another video with some other topics. Till then, Allah Hafiz.